Prepare to be wild.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Born to Be Wild, where we are doing our United in Stormwind card review from a wild perspective. We just finished up Paladin, and now we're moving on to the Priest class. So first up, we will start with the commons. First up is a spell. It is a 1-mana spell called Shard of the Naru. This is a holy spell. It is tradable, and it says silence all enemy minions. This card sucks. I don't really have anything good to say about it. Tradable is cool. Like, the only time I want 1-mana spells is like, okay, if I'm playing like Reno Priest, where I want this to enable like my, my machine gun Anduin type turns. But like, why do I want to silence all enemy minions? I don't really know. Like, it's maybe a little bit meta dependent if I'm seeing a ton of hand buff or a bunch of death rattle stuff or a bunch of taunts or whatever. But like, Priest has really solid removal, and so I don't really see the need for this. I not a huge fan. So yeah, Hydra, what do you think about this?
I mean, it's obviously cheaper than Mass Dispel, right?
Yeah, although Mass Dispel draws you a card. That's true. So it's, what is it? Big Priest mirror match tech?
Yeah, like literally the only thing I can see it going in is it's super cheap in there, because if you're playing something like palm reading and you can either discover this or you already have it, it's going to go down to 0 mana. So you could Mass Dispel and then you can either like do more res stuff or whatever. You can do this on the super cheap. And if you don't want it, right? Like, we used to play in Big Priest, you could the Sphere of Sapience, which was, pick and choose which card you draw, sort of thing. And this also kind of does that. Like,
with the tradable,
you draw this, you don't want it, you can put it back. I think it's a Big Priest mirror/control mirror tech card, and it is definitely cheaper than Mass Dispel and could possibly take its place. The drawing the card is super nice in the Mass Dispel, but this is only 1 mana, often going to be 0 when you're playing palm reading, so I don't think it's bad.
Yeah, okay. When I hit Legend at least twice with Big Priest, and I was running Mass Dispels because sometimes you need that for the lethal. Is this better than Mass Dispel? Yeah, I think so. You don't draw the card with it, but like, that's not what you're using it for.
That's
anyways.
never where I've never played Mass Dispel for the card draw.
Right. Well, and this has the tradable anyways. So if you draw this and you don't need it, you pitch it and you get something different. So like, okay, this replaces Mass Dispel. I think that's valid.
Yeah. So I haven't played a ton of Raza, which is the place that I was thinking that this might go into because of obvious, combo turns. It's only 1 mana, 0 with a palm reading. But also, hey, if I'm up against an odd paladin, you've given them a Divine Shield with Lothraxian and you just dropped Quartermaster. They're only 1/1s again, and then I can Spirit Lash and kill them all. Cool. As well as, if we're got Paladin on the brain, hand buff Paladin, they buff to this big old board, they hit face for a ton, and then you silence everything for only 1 and kind of keep on going. Aggro Druid, like so many things, like to Pirate Warrior, so many things like to take the board and buff it. And this is one way to unbuff it, even if it doesn't, deal with it itself. I think that's pretty strong. But again, I'm not a huge Raza Priest player myself. It just seems like disrupting the game plan and pitching it when you don't need it. If you, don't need it, you can trade it because it's tradable. Just seems really versatile and strong. Silence is strong. Silencing all enemy minions is strong. For 1 mana, seems great. Question mark. But I've hit the 1K priest portrait and haven't played a ton of priest since. So it's been a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I guess let's talk scores. I think I would give it a 2. I will test it in the priest decks. I if I played it in big priest, it's probably a 1 of. If I played arena priest, it's definitely a 1 of. I don't know what I swap out for it, right? Because like you know, I like the discover mechanics and stuff sometimes, but after the nerfs, then maybe not. I do like that it's 1 mana. There's some other arguments about it being a holy spell, and so that may be a little problematic. But I don't know, I give it a 2. Hydra, what do you think?
I don't necessarily think we're going to put it in every meta deck, but I do think we are going to see this played. This is a solid 3 for me.
Okay.
Yeah. For me, I'm gonna go solid 4. I think it's a great card that will be included in meta decks, and it'll straight up be good.
Wow, look
So, yeah,
at you guys
4
thinking
for
it's
me.
better than me. I love that. I love that. Oh, that's great.
I was surprised she put even above and beyond me. But
Well,
yeah, no, I think it's a good card.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical, I guess. But that's good. That's good. I hope I'm wrong. You know, I like new cards, so that's great.
I love it whenever we have differing opinions. Like, it's cool whenever we have the same ones, but it's also cool whenever we're like, ah.
Oh. Aha. All right. All right, next up we have Twilight Deceptor. This is a 2 mana 2/3 battle cry. If any hero took damage this turn, draw a shadow spell. Okay, so let us look real quick at the shadow spells, because this is going to come up in a minute anyways. So for priest, we're talking Raise Dead, which we use. Let's see here. Shadow Word Death, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Form, Thrive in the Shadows, Palm Reading, Hysteria, Shadow Word Ruin. Okay, those are the standard ones. And then for wild, Forbidden Words, which we don't really use anymore. Silence, Pint-Sized Potion, Potion of Madness, Seance, Mind Blast, Shadow Visions.
Yeah.
You know, okay, Spirit Lash. So I'm gonna go somewhere in just a minute with this idea, but the shadow spells are the good ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mass Hysteria, Excavated Evil, Power Word Tentacles, Shadow Essence, Plague of Death. So there's some decent, like the shadow spells are good. So drawing one is potentially pretty good. The question is, as as the priest, like, are you not going to be doing that much damage potentially? But this, I mean, you could have taken damage. Your opponent could have taken damage. So like the likelihood of actually pulling off this battle cry seems pretty decent. 2 mana 2/3 is a River Croc. Like, it's okay. Thinning my deck in Arena deck is good so that I can get towards my win con. Like, this might not be bad. I want to test it. I'm not too sure. I'm kind of teetering on the scores, but like there's potential just based on really wanting to draw the shadow spells because they're really good. Hydra, what are your thoughts on this?
My wife was making me order Greek food while we were doing that.
What did you get?
I picked an Opa platter combo, which is chicken souvlaki with oven roasted potato, pita wedges, and a Caesar salad.
Hey, very good.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
So what do you think of this card?
All right, so sorry about that. 2 mana 2/3. If any hero took any damage this turn, draw a shadow spell. I mean, Did we not talk about this one before? Did we not talk about this last time? I swear.
It was something that I think there's a new card that's a 1-mana 1/2 that if you used somebody got healed or something, then draw a card or draw.
There was that one, and then draw a card. If it's a holy spell, then reduce it or something like that.
Yeah,
I didn't see any play.
And the problem I think that we said last time was that when we looked at all the priest cards, the holy ones suck. So this one says draw a shadow spell, and all the shadow ones are good. So
and I like the direction if they're actually going to be taking this shadow priest thing a little more seriously in standard, which would be really, really cool.
I think this slots into Raza though. Like all my spells are shadow spells, or the vast majority of them for sure.
2-mana 2/3, basically draw a card. Yeah, no, I like it. I don't really have too much to add to it. I think it's pretty decent.
Yeah, I agree on all counts. I almost wonder if we run the legendary minion we'll get to before too long in Raza Priest as well to make things like this a little bit easier to activate, but that's probably a little too greedy. So don't mind me there.
Maybe.
This card's good though.
I think so too. I'm teetering on the score a little bit because like I'm just not 100% sure how easy it's going to be to proc the battle cry. Probably not that hard, but maybe. But there's an awful lot of damage going back and forth. What this says is any hero, so it can't be that hard.
Yeah, if you've got something on board, just hit him, play this. Boop.
Yeah. All right, so I'll give it a 3. It might be a 4. I think I'm going to settle with a 3 for now and then go test it out, though. But it definitely has potential for me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to auto just be in like a meta deck. So I'm going to say it's playable as well. So that's going to give it a 3.
And I'm going to say that it slots right in to Reno Priest, and so I'm going to give it a 4. Just going to be bold with it.
Yeah, no, it's a solid card. It's a solid card. You know, the more I think about it, when I started looking at these at first, I was like, okay, they're pushing this new like Shadow Priest standard thing, and like, but once I looked at the shadow spells, and I was like, oh, like we run all of those in Raza Priest, and they're all good. And I want to draw one of them. I want to thin my deck. Like this does everything that I want it to do. So, and it seems relatively easy to proc as well. Okay, next up is Void Shard. This is a 4-mana shadow spell with lifesteal, deal 4 damage. This is pretty interesting because it can go face, it can go minion, it has the lifesteal. It seems pretty good to me. The closest thing that I compared it to was Penance for 2, but Penance is deal 3 damage lifesteal to a minion. And so, okay, yes, this costs 2 more, but the versatility is a little higher. God, I wish that it costs 3. But the fact that it can go face, like it still makes me feel like it's playable, and it's like it has synergy with the last card. And if I'm gonna be like we talk about the legend in a little bit, switching up this deck a little bit so that there's more shadow cards and not holy cards, then there's some real potential here. I kind of like it, so we'll see. I just feel like there's some versatility. Hydra, what do you think about this?
I really do like that Priest is getting some burn. Its versatility. It's definitely nowhere near the power level of like a Mind Blast, which is only 2 mana.
Yeah, but Mind Blast can only goes one way. So this,
yes,
and this has lifesteal, so it's
So this it's just like a bigger penance basically with the ability to hit face. So I definitely think it's a good card. 4 mana, kill something, heal up, or you can use it as a finisher if you've got them down to that point. I think that there isn't too much of a downside to include this in a deck where you're looking to just clear the board, stay alive, possibly finish them out with it. I think it's a decent card.
Yeah, it really is a decent card. I just wish it costed a little less. So Penance is a holy spell.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're running all of the spells in our decks are exclusively Shadow, then we have to cut Penance. Do we put Void Shard in its place? I don't know that we do. I think it's just a little too expensive for early board control. For only 1 additional damage, which also only heals for 1 additional healing. But if we're running only shadow spells for Dark Bishop Benedictus, we may not need as many board control spells because our hero power can do that. So I'm kind of torn on this myself.
It goes face. It goes face. That's what I keep.
It does go face. It does go face, and that is definitely important. But it being 4 mana means if I'm doing, a combo turn, then it's hard to kind of chain this in with it, which is my only hesitation about it.
Yeah. No, I feel you there.
In Standard, Shadow Priest is going to be a thing, and they're going to run this in easy peasy, no questions. Shadow Priest in general, without it being the kind of like Raza Anduin combo, I don't know if it's going to be strong enough to be competitive. And so all of the Shadow spells that we do have would kind of need to support that if that's the archetype that it's going for. And I think Void Shard may be a little too expensive because of the chaining together for the combo. But I could be wrong. I mean, it is a strong card. It's just a little expensive.
It is. Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah, no, that's valid for sure. So I'm, kind of on the fence here, but I will be definitely trying it. So yeah, we'll see. All right, for scores, I give it a 3. I'm cautiously optimistic here. I want to try. I'm definitely going to be pushing a Reno Shadow Priest build and see how it goes. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be good enough. I tried the Xyrella Priest and I don't like it personally. I've seen people have success with it. I saw Glare had some success. I saw Martian had some success. Not really my jam because it's a play around. Like the meme dream is like you play Reno Jackson and then Xyrella and it's a full board clear. But like how often you actually get to do that? You have to play suboptimal spells in it that do healing so that your Xyrella works. I mean, I crafted it in gold so I could play it, but like I think this looks really fun. And I guess my point is in Priest, a lot of times like it's a more passive deck until you are ready to combo off. And so there are a lot of turns that you either do nothing or you discover a spell or you draw a spell and or clear the board. And so you're not always being mana efficient anyways, which like it always hurts a little bit because I want to, but I'm not. Yes, you do have to craft cards in gold to play them. I'm sorry. That's just the rule.
Come on.
If you have a deck, I'm sorry. If you have a deck that's all gold except 1 card, that feels really awful. And then you don't get the gold coin.
Gold, so I don't know what you're complaining about.
Anyways, I gave this a 3. Hydra, what do you score?
So it bummed me out that it's a little expensive because I'm used to the whole like Mind Blast thing. But then I'm thinking about the versatility of the card and that it heals. So I was gonna give it a 2 based on its mana, but looking at its versatility and the heal, I suppose I'm gonna give it a 3 because I think that it's definitely playable. I don't know if we're gonna see it in every deck, but I think it's a 3. It's a solid 3.
And I was gonna go with a 2, and then Nate brought up the fantastic point that this goes face.
Yeah.
So that makes it instantly more playable. And I'm going to go with the 3.
Ah, right. I love it. Okay.
You've convinced us.
You have.
I'm the convincing infiltrator. Hello, fellow humans. All right. Next up is the Priest Weapon, Shadowcloth Needle. This is a 2 mana 0/3 rare weapon. After you cast a shadow spell, deal 1 damage to all enemies, lose 1 durability. Yeah, I don't know. This feels like a duels card to me. It's interesting, especially if we're looking at all these shadow spells. In Wild, like, our lists are so refined that, like, man, we got into a big argument talking about whether or not to include the legendary weapon, the Sphere of Sapience.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's better than this one, right? At least arguably. And so our lists are so refined, but doing 1 damage AoE, like, this reminds me of the Murloc that Firemaster Flurgle, like, every time you play a Murloc, deal 1 damage AoE, except for shadow spells. So, like, could it be good? Yes, potentially. I don't know. Personally, like, I don't really like the idea of using it very much, but if it has a lot of synergy with the shadow stuff, and we're really gonna go full Shadow Priest, like, hey, maybe. But I worry that it's like, okay, this is a 2 mana do nothing, but in Priest, typically we're playing from behind anyways, and so we get some AoE with it. Like, I don't know. This also goes face. I mean, I play a shadow spell and 1 damage to all enemies. And what happens if I have some spell damage? Does this turn into, 2 damage to all enemies? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. No, I guess it doesn't, because this is a weapon. Anyways, I don't know. I personally, I don't really like it, but it could do some stuff. Feels like a build around for standard Shadow Priest to me, personally. Hydra, what do you think?
I love the idea of Shadow Priest. I think it's going to be really cool. I love doing the fun aggro priest that you can play in Wild. This has a really cool effect, but are you going to have the cards to be able to trigger its effect in your hand? I don't know. It's sort of 2 mana do nothing at its point in time. I'm not the biggest fan. I think it's actually really, really neat. And if we can build upon this, like, heck yeah, let's go. But I don't think right now is the time. Sheep looks like he may have something interesting to say, though. I don't know.
So I've debated about Shadowcloth Needle, kind of back and forth. I was really hoping that Moarg Artificer would double the damage, but that's damage from spells. This is a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, that doesn't double. I kind of... so if I'm thinking about it as 2 damage, or 2 mana, AoE, deal 3 to all enemies, including the hero. That's pretty good. But the fact that it needs other things in order to accomplish that, it starts getting a lot more conditional. And whenever something's more conditional, then it kind of has more drawbacks. Now, if we're running Shadow Priest, in particular with the Dark Bishop build, all of our spells are going to be Shadow, so it won't be too hard. It's basically just laying spells in order to get it to happen, but I don't know. I'd rather Shadow Essence. I'd rather, do other. I'd rather Spirit Lash. And you can do those things with this, but I don't know. It's preloading 3 damage AoE, which isn't bad, but it just seems not necessarily too reactive, because it's not that. It's just too slowly reactive. If that makes sense.
There's a really good point in chat as well that, like, there's potential, especially with only 3 durability, there's potential for a lot of wasted charges if I'm playing my shadow spell to do XYZ. Like, okay, they play their 8/8 and I Shadow Word Death and I kill the 8/8 and then it does 1 damage AoE to this empty board and I just lost a charge. Like, if you could pick and choose, like, you know, if you want to play a shadow spell and it does 1 damage, like, oh, cool. But, like, I don't think there's really a way to do that. But I see that as well. Like, I didn't want it to trigger, but it's gonna trigger. And I also struggle with what to cut to stick this in. I'll play it in standard for sure, because why not? But in Wild, I really struggle with it.
I don't even know if I'm going to play this in standard Shadow Priest.
I'm just gonna type in shadow, and everything that comes up, I'm just gonna dump into my shadow. Like, I mean, I'm
when you get
mostly
that,
being facetious, but yeah,
the quest to play this X many shadow cards.
yeah,
There you
right,
go.
right, yeah.
So how do you rate this one, Nate?
I give it a 1.
Same one.
One's all around.
The weapon does go
The
face.
weapon does go face.
It does. It does. That's great.
That is classic.
Oh dear. Okay, the next one up is called Psy Fiend. This is a 3-mana 3/4. It says after you cast a shadow spell, deal 2 damage to each hero. This is an interesting card for me because it reminds me of a shadow version of Spawn of Shadows. So, and that's our, typically our win con in Reno Priest is Spawn of Shadows. So if anyone watching or listening not familiar, you use your hero power and it does 4 damage to both heroes. And so, okay, this does 2 instead. But, hey, maybe this works. Like if we're running a shadow build and we're running shadow spells, maybe I don't think it's as good though. Like it's just Spawn of Shadows is great, like because you can OTK with it, and only 2. It's just not enough. It's this to me fits nicely into this standard Shadow Priest, if we want to go down that route. But in Wild, I just don't think it's quite good enough. Like it's budget Spawn of Shadows maybe in a specifically tailored Shadow Priest version of the deck, but now we're starting to get so specific that like, is it really worth it? I don't know. Someone could test it maybe. I'm like kind of skeptical. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's great. And I mean, I think the other piece is, okay, if we're playing a Shadow Priest build with Benedictus, then there's no, we don't have healing anymore to counteract this type of thing. Where in Raza, like early on, hey, like I can play Raza and I can heal myself for 0, which a lot of times you end up doing. And so, I mean, and then I guess the other piece of this is, right, if I'm really, really playing Raza Priest, I am going to Polkelt, right, and shuffle my whole deck in order of mana cost, and I know what's coming up, and if I haven't drawn them, we really limit the minions now in the deck anyways, so I know, okay, I'm going to draw Reno, and I'm going to draw Raza, and then I'm going to draw Spawn, and at 3 mana, like, if I haven't drawn this already, now it puts it way down at the bottom of that list, and I'm going to have to draw, 3 or 4 more cards before I get to this. And I don't really want to do that. So it's cute, but I don't think that it works nearly as well as the existing card. Hydra, what do you think?
I think that it's a really cool card. I think that this is more of something that we're going to play in standard. I don't think this is a Spawn of Shadows replacement by any means. It's very specific to do the shadow spells. I think it's really cool, but I don't think it's anything that's going to necessarily take over the meta. We're going to be playing with this card, and it's the new thing. I think that Raza Priest is probably just going to remain mostly the same, and we're not going to run something like this.
Yeah, whenever I was comparing this and Spawn of Shadows, because that's the clear kind of comp, right? Spawn of Shadows does a net of 6. Siphene does a net of 4, right? Because you're still going to be pinging with your hero power in between every shadow spell that you do. So basically still a net of 4. If my opponent is at full health, I only have to do things 5 times with Spawn of Shadows to get it to happen. 'Cause 30 divided by 6 is 5. For Psyfiend has to be 7.5 times. So 8 times. That's not really a finisher. And let's be real, we've already got, a finisher in Spot of Shadows. So we've got another thing that's lower in our deck after Polkelt. That is again not a finisher. That is again, it requires the shadow spells in order to actually do it rather than just your hero power like Spawn does. This will be great in standard and as a way to get chip damage and do all sorts of fun Shadow Priest things in standard, but we have a way to get there a lot quicker already in Wild that fits the same exact niche for just 1 mana more. So sorry, Psyfiend. I think you're cool, but you're a standard card. So how do you rate this one, Nate?
I gave it a 1. I just don't think it's that good. I like the idea of it, and if you're trying to play a budget version or something, maybe, but like it doesn't do what we want it to do nearly as efficiently, and I gotta really dig hard for it. It's just a hard sell for me. So I give it a 1.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see this making any sort of an impact, or I don't even really think I'm gonna run into it on the ladder, so it's gonna be a 1 for me.
And that is 1s all around with
right.
my 1 as well.
Cool. Okay, next up is the mount for Priest. This is called Elic Mount. It's a 7-mana spell. Give a minion +4/+7 and taunt. When it dies, summon an Elic. The Elic is a 4/7 with taunt. It's probably a beast as well.
It is.
Okay, so here's my thought. 7 mana, that's a lot of mana. Like, okay, where do I play this? The only place I can see playing this in Wild is Combo Priest, because 7 has a big old booty, and then I can double it and then make it my attack. And so there's potential there. Like, okay, I've got a big minion, and then you kill it, and there's another big minion. That being said, like, 7 mana is a lot, and there's some easier ways to do that type of thing. Like, I'm playing Deathlord. And it's got a bigger booty than this, and it only costs 3. So, I mean, that being said, if somebody plays this, I'm going to be super irritated to have to deal with it, because +4/+7 now creates this giant minion, and then I kill it, and it dumps another one out. It's like the ultimate anti-aggro card. It's just... it costs 7, and that's a lot. And that's what I struggle with. Like, but it has to cost that because it's a big minion that it's going to leave. I just, I really see this being played more in standard, because the traditional standard win, like the priest win con in standard, is annoy your opponent to death until they concede out of frustration. And they've added another win con that like synergizes with that as well, that we'll talk about in a minute. But like, okay, this is drop it like a big old giant thing, and now your opponent's gonna have to run all their stuff into it, and then they're not gonna have any stuff left. And so it's a good stall card, but like, God, it's super slow. You picture this and then put like attach lifesteal to it or something as well, and you're just like, all right, just sit here and run into my giant taunt thing, and I'll gain a bunch of life. In Wild, I just don't see it. The only place I see it is this Combo Priest, which again, there's better ways to do, and nobody plays it anyways. I mean, I see Corb play it sometimes, but like, it's not meta like it used to be. Is this fun to discover off of something? Especially against, like, as an anti-aggro tool. Like, okay, cool, I get it from palm reading, and it costs 6, and I'm going to frustrate the poor aggro player to death. I've been playing Pirate Warrior for 2 full months, and, like, if someone plays this, like, I'm just going to bottom right, because I can't deal with it. But
if someone plays this, then they got to 7 mana, and you did something wrong.
Yeah. No, yes, right? That's the thing, so... Anyways, that's my 2 cents on this. Like, this is a dope card. It's also like slow, like real slow. So, Hydra, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, this card is way too slow. It is like in a minion-based deck, but at the same time, like if you're playing something like Big Priest, which is minion-based, summoning and resummoning your minions, what else do you play at 7 mana? Like Spellstone, which is going to bring back like 4 things, and possibly if you've already played Vargoth, it's just going to fill your whole board. Like, this is just so weak compared to something like that, that even if I discover this off of palm reading, there's like maybe other things that, in my opinion, are better even to pick. It depends on what you get.
I mean,
I think it's strong, as a defensive tool, but I don't know. I don't foresee myself ever putting this in a deck.
The lists are so tight that what do you cut for this? That's where I really struggle. Like nothing. I'm not going to pull out Psychic Scream for this.
No. Yeah, it's not something that I'm going to play. Like it's cool. It's just very expensive, and I get why it is. It's that way for standard, but in wild 7 mana priest, we're doing some nutty things at that point. So.
Yeah. For me, I'm with you on that. The Divine Spirit Interfire Priest now is very much a much more low to the ground. So that what they like to do is the power word whatever that it costs less for how many spells are in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
They play that on one of your minions. Then they play it again on one of your minions. And then they Wave of Apathy. And then they potion to pull it. And then they Divine Spirit Interfire, and they kill you with your own minion. Mm-hmm. It's great. Trying to weave in an Elec mount in between all of this just seems... The other way's faster.
In Wild, we don't like to pay mana for cards, right?
No, and 7 mana is a lot of mana. It's puts a pretty big roadblock in. 2 of them, in fact. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just unfortunately a little too slow. Alas.
Yeah, I love the artwork of Zyrellus riding that giant elephant through the town, like trampling all the stuff, and like the theme.
And then it's on a rampage afterwards in the card itself, the Zyrellus Elec.
Oh yeah, I love it. And no, I agree. I think if I discover this off of something like situationally, it's very good. Yeah. It's very good. It's just I'm not pulling something good out of my deck to stick this in.
Agreed.
So, in terms of scoring. I gave it a 1. I feel a little bit bad about it because I think the card itself is pretty good. I just don't think it fits anywhere, and it's really slow.
Yeah. This is a 1 for me.
It could be a 2.
I wanted to give it a 2.
I know.
But it's just too expensive. It's a 1.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Ray's card. I love it. Call of the Grave. If you guys haven't seen it, Ray from the Walk to Work podcast did the card reveal for this one, and it was amazing. It's adorable. Him and his daughter do the card reveals. It was so fun.
She's a zombie.
Yeah, she was trying to eat his brain. It was so great. So this is a shadow spell. Call of the Grave, 1 mana epic. Discover a Death Rattle minion. If you have enough mana to play it, trigger its Death Rattle. All right. So for me, this one falls into the line of like fun versus good. Like back in the day, like I played a ton of Reno Priest with like Reno Quest Priest with Amara and all the Death Rattle stuff. And it's super fun, but like we don't really do that anymore. We could. I know, big sad. We could, but I don't like why. I don't know. I guess if you want to have fun, but but overall, like I don't think that we probably want to run this. Like, okay, how fun is it to say like, okay, I play this on 7 and I discover a Sylvanas and I got 6 mana left and I trigger the Death Rattle and I steal the thing. Like, okay, like I mean, there's a pretty good chance that you are going to discover something decent and be able to trigger the death rattle, which is kind of fun. But the other piece of it is in wild, like discover a death rattle minion. There's about a bazillion death rattle minions.
Yeah.
And so the chances of getting a good death rattle minion is a lot more narrow. And so like sure, let's play it in standard and we might get something pretty cool. We play it in wild, your chances of getting a bunch of garbage is a lot higher. So I give it like an A+ for fun factor, and hey, you got 11x. Please play Quest Reno Hunter or Quest Reno Priest rather, and maybe you'll do well with it. But I just don't. I think there are more optimal builds at this point.
Yeah, I think this is a little too random. It's not something I want to run. Like, yeah, cool, discover Death Rattle minion, but like, what are you gonna get? There's so many things not ideal for the situation that you're currently in. Yeah, you're definitely playing a Death Rattle minion for sure, but it just seems a little too random for me. I like running the cards in my deck that that I already want, not searching for something, right? So
if you compare this to nine lives a little bit, right, where it says like discover a death rattle minion in your deck that already died and trigger its death rattle and get a copy of it, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool because I know what it is. But when it's the random factor that kills this for me.
So I think this has a little bit more potential.
Okay. Hit me.
Not necessarily for the effect of the death rattle going off, though that can be impactful. But it's a shadow spell, so if we're running Shadow Raza Priest, then here's a cheap thing that we can combo off with. Mm-hmm. Cool, that's good. But 2, I can play this early, whether I'm getting the value of the death rattle immediately, and see about contesting the board early if I need to, if my draws are bad. Or if I'm, into the late game and I'm able to be like, oh, yeah, hey, I can get an obsidian statue would be cool. Something like that. That's obviously pie in the sky, but most death rattles are advantageous for the people whose minions died. So odds are, whether they're particularly impactful or not, it'll, and you're discovering it, right? So you're discovering it, you can be like, oh, this one's trash, I don't want that, that one's actively bad for me, but these two are pretty good. This one's better in this situation. Cool, I get that death rattle effect, then I have the minion in hand. Maybe I play it, maybe I don't, depends on the situation. It's just a little versatile, and it's definitely not like oh, you must run this card, it's OP, but it's like it's not bad. It could be tempo if you need it. It's just pretty versatile. So I like it a little bit, but I also have not played a ton of Raza, so who knows? How do you rate this card, Nate?
Yeah, I gave it a 2, because I feel like it's fringe. I don't think that I don't personally see myself slotting it in, but hey, maybe, like you said, it's a 1 mana spell, and like, could I play it in the Shadow Raza deck? Like, yeah, actually you could. So yeah, there's potential. I feel like it's a 2 as kind of fringe.
Yeah, I feel like that while I don't think we're going to be seeing this every day, that there will be some cases that we can play it. Definitely extremely fringe, maybe in, what is it, the Amara deck or something like that. Awaken the Makers, is that it?
Yeah, Awaken the Makers.
But yeah, other than that, I don't know how often we're going to see it. But I think it's really cool. So that's why I'm going to at least give it a 2, because we will see it. It'll be on the side. But I think we'll see it.
Yeah. Cool.
I want to give it a 3, but yeah, it's probably actually a 2. So I will go 2 in solidarity.
Nice. All right, cool. Next up is Void Touched Attendant. This is an epic 1 mana 1/3 that says both heroes take 1 extra damage from all sources. This is an interesting one. I mean, I definitely feel like this slots into the Shadow Priest and like, okay, it's interesting. I don't know that it's necessarily good though. That's where I struggle seeing this. Like, the way that Raza works right now, until you're ready to combo off, like having that 0 mana heal 2 can be pretty beneficial sometimes because you need to not die. Like I could see this being really great when I'm comboing off, and like cool, this will get me that boost in extra damage that I want to get to kill my opponent. But in the meantime, like, do I want to take this, like play this for tempo? No, I really don't. You remember way back when the warrior played that 1 mana weapon that like it did the same thing, right? You take double damage or something. And I love when they play that. Like, cool, let me just smash you in the face and like do extra damage to you.
Yeah.
And I worry that like the situation I see this being good in, like, cool. All right, let me throw this in Shadow Priest, and then I'll play Polkelt, and this is gonna be Curse Blade. This is gonna be at the very bottom of my deck, and I'm comboing off, and I'm gonna play this, and this gets me a little extra damage boost to like kill my opponent. But like a lot of the cards that are played in Reno Priest right now are either to like this. Most of it's to like help you draw into your combo, and this doesn't do that. So okay, cool. Like, do you play it in some funky aggro build? Like, all right, yeah, let me play this and play a bunch of Mind Blasts or something. Like, okay, whatever. But in the solid like meta decks, I don't think it's gonna work. So I mean, I'm interested in y'all's opinion, but I don't really see it.
The only thing that like I first thought of was the whole Raza Priest thing that, if you got the extra mana, you can put it down. It's only 1, right? And you already have all these discounted spells, and, you're pinging them, that maybe it's a way to get there a little quicker. That's like basically the only application that I could see it in. And it's super cheap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not playing this on curve as a 1/3. That's not happening. You're using this to combo off with the machine gun is how I saw it. And originally the first thing I thought was, holy crap, that's actually really good, because sometimes you can't quite get there. And this is 1 mana, but you're having that 1 extra damage every ping, right? So it's like sort of exponential in that sort of way.
Yeah, so you're like 3/3/3 instead of 2/2/2, but
yeah. So like whether or not that ends up making the cut, I don't know. But on initial like looking at it, that seemed like a pretty neat idea and something that you could do. Whether we get there with it or not, that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, and that was my initial thought process as well. And then I thought about it kind of a little differently too, right? Because you probably don't want to drop Void Touched Attendant if you're not comboing off, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing it without Spawn of Shadows, then you have to ping, let's say they're at 30, 10 times, really 11, because the first one is just 2 before you drop the Void Touched Attendant, right? So you have to do it like, 11 times. So if you're only doing it whenever you're comboing off, then it might just be a little bit more of a hindrance in getting to a combo than anything else, especially because until you're comboing off, it's a dead turn, because if you're up against aggro, then all of a sudden all of their 1/1s are dealing 2 to your face, and you're just taking a lot more damage. And the fact that it can get stranded in your hand so much easier is because I was right there with you, Hydra, and then like I was looking at it, I was like, oh wait, if I drop this and I'm not killing them, then they're gonna kill me, because every bit of damage has 1 extra damage to my face too.
Right.
Their next turn, and it's still on board. So yeah, I like the idea of it, but I think at the end of the day, it just doesn't help us get to the combo, and it doesn't have a kind of better kind of synergy. It has a synergy with the combo whenever you're at that place, but it almost seems like a win more at that point, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. For scores, I gave it a 2. I think that there's potential, it would be interesting, but I also see this kind of win more potential. And I also really struggle I worry that it'd be difficult to draw. I'm so used to playing pull kilt to draw into all of my like win cons that this essentially dumps this at the very bottom of your deck if you haven't drawn it already. And so it makes it difficult to get to. So yeah, I give it a 2.
Yeah. The whole pull cult thing makes it a bit more of a bummer for me. Dumping it at the bottom if you don't have it. I think it's definitely going to be seen at some point on the outskirts. So I'm going to go with the 2 as well.
Cool. And I'm going to go with the 1 because I just think it has a little anti-synergy with our plan.
Yep. I think you're probably right. Okay. Next up is the legendary spell called Seek Guidance. This is a 1-mana quest line. Play a 2, 3, and 4 cost card. Reward, discover a card from your deck. The next part of that is called Discover the Void Shard. This says quest line, play a 5 and 6 cost card. Reward, discover a card from your deck. And finally, Illuminate the Void questline. Play a 7 and 8 cost card. Reward Zyrella the Sanctified, who is a 5-mana 7/7 with Taunt and Battlecry. Shuffle the Purified Shard into your deck. Purified Shard is a 10-mana legendary spell that says destroy the enemy hero. This is absolutely bonkers, okay? Do I think that this is good? No, not really. Okay, the reason why is because you talk about slow as dirt. This is really, really slow. That being said, I think that this is just a like thumb in the air or thumb on the nose. What is it called? To all of the people who were complaining about standard priest not having a win con. Like, okay, you annoy your opponent to death, and like you don't do anything, and they play minions and then you kill them, and they play minions and then you kill them, but you're not doing anything proactive. Like, okay, well then you just play this and then you just win. Like, it's super slow. But then I started thinking about it, okay? And I'm like, well, let's look at this again. Play 2, 3, 4 cost. Play 5 and 6 cost. Play 7 and 8 cost. Like, dude, I could play that in Big Priest. I could play that in Reno Priest. Is it good to do? Like, probably not. But like, I have all those cards in those decks anyways, and they're not proactive decks. They're more reactive or like slower decks for the most part. And so like, if you really want to like meme out and throw this in there as like an alternate win con, could you do it? You could do it. I'm going to laugh super hard when your freaking Purified Shard gets counterspelled, or when your opponent like discovers discover a card in your opponent's hand or something, and like you just lose to it. But it's possible. So do I think that it's necessarily good? Like, it's so slow. But like, Priest is slow. It's super greedy. Okay, I recognize that 100%. Like, look, the viewer count is, every time I say this that this card has potential, we lose like 5-10 viewers. It's great. Okay, it's probably not good enough to really throw in anything, but like, yeah, you could do it. It reminds me of Cthulhu the Shattered is kind of what it reminds me of, right? You've got to do this stuff and it's kind of slow, and then you've got this kind of funky win con that like feels kind of win more, but like if you're really just doing nothing, then you can win with it. It looks like fun to me, and like I love the idea of like you play the spell and you just win the game. But talk about hoops to jump through. The difficult piece in playing this for me especially is, you have to play these cards in the right order. And so, okay, cool. Like if I'm just playing, tempo priest or whatever, and I'm just playing, or cards priest, and I'm just dumping cards, like, yeah, okay, I played 2, 3, 4, 5 mana cards, but you got to play them in the right order to trigger these, and so it makes it more difficult to pull off. Someone mentioned along the way, like Spiteful Priest, where like, okay, but like this shard doesn't get shuffled into your deck or into your, I guess this gets added to your hand.
Yeah.
Not into your deck, right? This goes into your hand. So Spiteful's never going to do this, or the other card that like plays a spell from your hand, or excuse me, from your deck. Like it's not going to play this. And so
Xyrella shuffles it into your deck.
Oh. Hold on. Yep.
Go back.
It does. Okay. Yes, you're right. All right. Shuffle the Purified Shard into your deck. Okay. So Spiteful will pull. Say you play Spiteful Summoner, it drops a 10 mana minion. You'll get a 6/6 Cthulhu, but okay. Or what is it? I don't remember what it's called. I think it's an 8 mana that says at the end of your turn, cast a spell from your deck or something like that. But if you're, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But if you're playing a priest deck in general, very, very likely that you're running lots of spells in your deck. And so the chance of it actually pulling this one is pretty slim. Like, it's such a weird, funky build around. Like, I don't know why you would do that. Could it work? And maybe. That's what I think. Just wait until somebody counterspells it and you feel awful.
Yeah, that would be brutal. I like that you can accomplish it just by playing on curve, because that's what the quest asks you to do. So, like, that's super nice, but it just seems way, way too slow. Like, it really cool. Play on curve. Seems like a standard thing to do. Let's play on curve. Here's your drops along the way. Shuffle this in. The thing is, if we're going to compare it to, say, Cthulhu the Shattered, I've included Cthulhu the Shattered in a handful of different decks, and the amount of times I actually got to play Cthulhu, were 5% of the time.
Right.
The most, but right? It almost never happens. It's like this alternate win condition.
But the Cthulhu spells were pretty good. I mean,
yeah.
It was like, hey, the AoE or the destroy a minion, or like they weren't bad. They cost a lot, but like
they were positive.
Yeah.
I think in particular, like you said, Nate, this was to give standard priest a win condition, because right now the win condition is just annoy your opponent until they concede. Priest in Wild already has a win condition.
Yeah, pretty good ones
Combo
too.
Priest, which goes up a lot quicker than this, and Big Priest, which you can start hitting the dome with some big minions a lot quicker than you can pull this off. So it's gonna be, I don't even think it's gonna be great in standard, but it's a standard card, and it's for them to give Priest a win condition, and we don't need it. We can get there faster.
Yeah,
I want to try it. I definitely want to try it. It's probably a bad idea, and I fully recognize that, but I still want to try it. And it's going to look really nice in gold. Not that that's a good idea. But,
probably not.
Okay. I gave it a 3, and I think that might be being overly generous. It's probably a 2. Well, you know what? I'm just going to give it a 2. I'm going to call it fringe because that's what it is. It's fringe. Can you dump it into something like Big Priest or Reno Priest? Like, yeah. Is it going to make the deck worse? Probably. But I will be the one to try it for sure. So it's a 2 for me.
Watch, this turns into the new Mechathune or something. I'm going to give it a 2 as well, because I think it's fringe playable, and I think it's going to be fun. I don't think it's 100% unplayable. I think it's going to be a little neat side thing you can do. Don't think we're going to be seeing too much of it. Cheap.
And I'm going to give it a 1 because I'm going to love watching people try and make this work while I smack them in the dome and collect free wins.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most accurate assessment. Yeah. Look at that. It's a big, beautiful one right there. All right, the last priest card that we have is Dark Bishop Benedictus, legendary minion, 5 mana, 5/6. At the start of the game, if the spells in your deck are all shadow spells, enter shadow form. Shadow form is switches your hero power. So instead of heal for 2 mana heal 2, it's 2 mana deal 2 damage. So that's pretty cool. I love his little tiny baby wings. Like, you think he could fly with those? There's no way. These are like little cherub wings. They're hilarious. It's hard to see here, but in different artwork you see them. And he's like this big dude with these little baby wings. It's so funny. Anyways, this card in Diamond looks freaking amazing. His arm is all moving around and his little wings are flapping, and like, this card looks so cool. Anyways, so we were talking earlier about shadow spells. I definitely think that this card is going to be pretty gnarly in, like, it's going to be, it seems like a build around to me for like a Reno Priest build, Shadow Reno Priest or whatever. But yeah, look, Raise Dead, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, Thrive in the Shadows, Palm Reading, Devouring Plague, Hysteria, Shadow Word Ruin.
Good cards.
They're really good cards. Silence is one that we used to use. Potion of Madness, Seance, Shadow Visions, Spirit Lash, Palm Reading. Like, those are really good cards. And so it seems to me like this is pretty easy to build the deck around. So I will definitely be trying. I think this is actually pretty viable. And so the question is, you know, as Reno Priest, you have to stay alive until you can pop off and win. And a lot of times it's, you know, it's stalling. It's not necessarily playing mana efficient. It's drawing into your stuff. And so you end up healing a lot. But like, I could see entering shadow form immediately as really beneficial to be like just killing my opponent's minions in order to stay alive. We lack healing is the problem, although Reno Jackson is a card. So hey, this seems pretty good. Like, the more I think about it, the more I like this. So it just seems like a different way to build the same deck, and they're probably good both ways. So okay, this means that you can't run the holy spells.
So no penance, no renew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can't use the new. You can't use Condemn. You can't use Holy Nova. You can't use. Some people use Binding Heal, Holy Smite, Shadow, Power Word Shield.
Wave of Apathy has no spell school, so you can't run that either.
Yeah, Penance is the good one. Light Bomb is a holy spell.
Purify.
Yeah. So, but I think the trade-off might be worth it. So, like, if I have to weigh like shadow spells versus holy spells versus neutral spells, like, okay, and even Psychic Scream is a shadow spell. So the shadow spells are really good. So I think this is going to be pretty fun build of the deck. I will be jamming this 100%.
Yeah, I think that this, well, we've had Shadow Priest in the past, but I mean, it's not something that we actively actually played, right? Like, we've had the ability to do it for so long, but I mean, you have to draw into it.
And yeah, that's the thing, and it's so hard to draw into.
Yeah,
the start of game effect is like, oh, that changes everything.
Yeah, this is our Baku or Gen trigger, right? Like right off the bat. And it's not a bad statted card either. It's a 5 mana 5/6. So if you end up, top decking this later in the game, midway through the game, it's not that bad. It's got a decent body to it, decent attack to it. So I think that's cool. And I love the idea of the new archetype. Like, even though we've had it sort of before, it's basically new at this point. If we could just do it from the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool. I completely embrace it, and I'm definitely going to be trying this for sure. I think it's awesome. I don't know how viable it's going to be, but I think it's amazing, and I'm going to play it.
Yeah. The only concern that I have is the viability because of the deck restrictions, but it seems like basically adding a different class. Just you can only play priest cards and neutral cards. Just, only shadow spells whenever you're playing those from priest. That seems great.
Right?
So I'm excited to try it out. I don't know how impactful it's going to be, but we're definitely going to see a lot of play with it for a while. And the more expansions that come out and the more shadow spells that they pump out, the better Dark Bishop Benedictus is going to be, because any good shadow spells can be added to that deck, be it the Raza variant or just straight up Shadow Priest. So I'm really excited, not just for this expansion, but also future archetypes that will hinge around Dark Bishop Benedictus into whenever he's straight up rotated into wild and they're not balancing around him anymore for standard. Then I think is when we're going to get the really good stuff. So
yeah,
in it for the long con there.
I mean, the difference here is like, so you play with Raza and now your hero power costs 0. So you're doing, 0 mana deal 2. The great part about Shadow Reaper Anduin is that your hero power refreshes every time you play a card. And so this lets you do the damage early, but it's still going to be chip damage or board control damage. So I don't think I don't really foresee it as an alternate win con necessarily, but hey, it's kind of cool. Just the option to like, hey, I do damage instead of healing.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
The Raza variant, it's more just a different play pattern than it is anything else, right?
Yeah.
What I'm really excited about is whenever we eventually are able to make a good and consistent, just straight up Shadow Priest that's not contingent around the Raza Anduin combo too, which may or may not eventually happen, but that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. In terms of scores, I'm giving this one a 4. I think that it's definitely going to be playable. It's pretty easy to slot into the Reno Priest. Do I think it's busted? No, because you still rely on Raza and Anduin to do the thing. But this is a different way to play that deck, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I give it a 4.
Okay. Interesting. I'm going to give it a 3 based on, I don't know if it's going to just be in the meta deck, but at the same time, I also think it creates a new archetype if we're going to go that way. So I think that's really cool. But I don't necessarily think it's going to just be in the priest meta deck that we see, but we are going to see it. It's going to be there and it's going to be cool. So for me, that's a 3. Sheep.
Yeah, I'm going with a 3 as well, specifically because we're looking at just this expansion cycle. If we were projecting further into the future, I would rate it higher because it will create a new archetype, but I don't know that there's enough kind of surrounding it to get there and make that particularly meta at the moment. But I would love to be wrong because the flavor is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, sweet. Hey, that does it for us for Priest. We're kind of taking the slow road, but it's been a lot of fun to talk through these cards. Next up is Rogue. And thank you all for hanging out. We're going to end this recording and then start up again in a minute.